Hi, my name is Melody Murray, and I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I'm so excited to share with Pearl today.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under 80. Funny how there ain't no rain or clean. Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl again. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Pearl. And today we're going to talk about family and life and lots of great stuff. We have a great special guest today. Her name is Melody Murray. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist and a child mental health specialist. She has private practice counseling individuals 14 and up, interviewed by New York Times, The Business Insider, The Doctors, E-Networks, and Peace of Mind with Tarji on Facebook Watch. School district mental health liaison for students and family in crisis. And I know you parents need that often. Co-hosting relationship conversations to a local audience in Houston. Her goal is to normalize and validate the human experience and destigmatize mental health therapy. I'm so excited. We're going to talk about this today. Completed her first book, Mourning the Living, 4 years as a hospital ER mental health evaluator, accessing homicidal and suicidal patients. Wow, that's got to be a story there. She's a former reality TV producer and director, stand-up comedian for LA for 5 years, former children's show co-host and expert in childhood trauma, family dynamics, and suicidal ideation. Wow, Melanie, you've got some heavy stuff there that you do, girl. Welcome to the show.
It's a lot, isn't it?
I think you have to be a comedian with some of that, right? You got to find something funny and everything.
I need material.
It's funny you say that. I watched this show called, I think it's called Million Little Lies or something like that. It's the last season, and two of the characters are expecting a baby, and they met this other couple at the Rita Lamaze classes or whatever. And the husband of the other couple, he's a comedian. He's like, yeah, I need material. And they were talking about the home birth. Yeah, I need material for that. And he's going through all this material. I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess it's true. There's lots of material in the world. We just don't realize it for comedians.
Everywhere you go. And it's a former life of mine. I'm in Houston now, was in Seattle before here. Then I was in LA for 12 years. And so I did stand up for almost 5 years there. And everywhere you go, everything you're doing is material, because I'm just one of those people that likes to look for something to laugh about no matter where I am. That's my sick mind. So yeah, it was a lot of fun for a very long time.
I love that. And I love that you said that too, because we do have to look for something fun in life, because life can be so heavy. As you know, your bio, you help people who've gone through some really heavy stuff in their life. And I remember when I was younger, when I first met my husband, I was only like 19. And I remember I was such a people watcher. I would love to watch what people were doing. And we lived in Venice Beach, and we also used to be on the beach. And that was back in the day when they had these, I think they're called clove cigarettes. And I couldn't stand to smell them. And I remember being on the beach, and these people, they come down to Venice Beach and how they dress, and then you got the Muscle Beach. And it was so much fun. I wasn't a comedian, but I was like, it was so
watching.
Cool. It was so fun. So Melanie, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, I know I read your bio, but walk us through a little bit. What led you down the path of what you're doing today?
A chaotic childhood actually can be seen as a pro and a con. As strange as it may sound, I had, really, it was a lot of chaos, every kind of abuse you can imagine. And my parents were just not who parents are supposed to be. And I think that in a weird way, it gave me the freedom to just try everything. Try anything, because I had no expectations of who I needed to be or what I had to represent at all. And I think I just ran with that. And so I was just always willing to just try anything. And so whenever I was in school, I was in every extracurricular activity, and that had to do with just not wanting to be home. So how do you not be home? You've got commitments. And so I was in every club. And then whenever I went to college, I went to school because I knew I needed to do something. I didn't know exactly what, and majored in hotel and restaurant management. Didn't spend one day working in a hotel or a restaurant. I just knew I needed a degree. And while I was there, I did some acting. I did some commercials. I hosted a children's show, did some independent film, and then decided I'm going to move to LA because, there's not enough entertainment here in Houston. So I need to take off and go. So after I did some projects here, I left for LA when I was 28 years old and worked my way up, became a producer, became a director after starting out as a runner and a production assistant, and just got my hands involved in everything that anybody would allow me to do. And had a couple of big moments working on two different shows back to back, two shows that I was directing, and had one of those, an existential crisis, which was, I need my time to matter. I need my presence to matter. I want to be able to help people not have a camera on them when they're having their toughest moments, when they're having their crisis moment. I want to be able to help. I want to be able to say something, to intervene in some way. And that's just not something you do in reality TV. You want to capture all the stuff. And it was fun for a really long time. And then I made a pivot. I was in my own personal therapy at the time, and I'd been traveling. I was in Georgia for one project and I was in Vegas for another. And when I made it back to LA, I made an appointment with my therapist. And I said, hear me out. I'm thinking of doing this thing. I need you to tell me if I'm too crazy to do this thing. I want to be a therapist. He goes, no, I think you'd be brilliant. He's like, I'll write whatever recommendation letters you need. And that was it. So I took off and started graduate school probably about a year later because I was still holding on to that TV money. It was hard to let that go. And then I made the leap. And I've been working in mental health ever since. And then actually been able to combine both of my loves. I've been on television shows now. Being on the other side of the camera again has been so much fun. And that's what I want to keep doing. I want to blend these two loves of mine, television and mental health.
And I love that we have too much in common. I'm going to build on that in a minute, but I love that you said, this is what I was doing, but I realized I wanted to do more. And then you went, and because we always talk on a show often about, if you're not sure of something, go see a coach, go get a therapist, talk to somebody. And I love that you said that was one of the first things you did, to go, does this make any sense? Am I sounding like I'm crazy? This is, how does this sound to you? And I just love that you do that, because oftentimes, we need that person we can go to and say, I'm thinking about doing this. What are your thoughts? Because sometimes we may think it's a great idea, and then we go, well, have you thought about this, this, and this, and this, right? And then we realize, oh, maybe it's not the way I want to do it. Maybe there's a different kind of pivot. So I love that you shared that right away. You had that support to go to. And then I love too that you've been able to take it, like you said, and combine them both. Like, you're sharing the story about mental fitness and things like that on the TV, on the news and shows and such. I think that's so amazing that we're doing that. And, you were talking about childhood issues and, keeping yourself busy out of school. So I was just talking, I literally was on the phone with my aunt before we got on here. And I was telling her about a situation that's happening in my world right now. And I said, it's okay. I had to go back to my boundaries. I opened my fence. I let that person into my fence. And when it came time for them to stand up for me and, be that person who should be for me, they didn't do it. So I was like, oh, my fence has to go back locked for a little bit until I matter to them. And I love what you talk, because when I was younger, at 14 years old, I was working. I started working babysitting, and then I went to little Kmart when Kmart was, really popular back in the world. And I rode my moped to Kmart, and then I went and worked at the grocery store. I've never not worked since 14 and a half years old.
I did the same. I worked at Walmart and then a grocery store.
Oh, we have too much in common.
Yep.
And then I was like, at 17, like, I graduated high school based on my birthday. I graduated still at 17. So I turned 18 a few months later. I was paying my own car payment, making my own insurance payment, and my parents wanted to give me curfew. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm
Are you
out.
kidding? I'm a grown ass woman.
Yes,
Nope.
exactly. So I got my first place in Lake Worth, Florida on the beach. It was so amazing. I wanted it so bad that I actually shared a room with a roommate. Like we shared a 1 bedroom place. I was like, "Hey, we're going to make this work." It is what
Mhm.
it is. But, one of the things that I read in your bio, and I want to touch on that because it touched my heart, and that is mourning the living. Like mourning the living. So a little bit of my story is that my oldest son was born of my heart, Matthew, who we also lost last July at 25
Mhm.
years old. And he was mixed race, and our family, and that he came into our family as our child. We're My husband and I are both white. We were trying for 10 years to have kids. After Matt came, we did have a child through infertility. In addition to that, his bio family was all white. His mom, had met a gentleman that was African American. But through all of this, when I was trying to have kids, my parents were all in, and I was a daddy's girl, all in. And your bio really hit home for me because when my parents divorced after 43 years of marriage, my dad came and lived with us for probably about 5 or 6 years later after it happened. And he had to mend fences with my boys because some things that he did when they were little and visiting him just before the divorce. So he came to live with us. And, you tell your kids to put their things away and they say they put them away. My son was always telling me, I can't find my cleats. I'm like, I don't know where they are if you put them where they're supposed to be. Well, come to find out, my dad remarried, after he got divorced from his second wife, I went to just go visit her. I was in town, thought I'll just go say hi. And she told me, I need to tell you something. And she shared with me that my dad was hiding my son's cleats on him and that my dad was calling him the N word. And my dad was doing all this racial tendencies with him. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I didn't see it. My son never said anything because he knew he was my father and it was his grandfather. Why would my grandfather do this? And I literally sat in my car for like 2 hours in a driveway and I wrote an obituary to my dad being my dad. And I was like, well, he's alive. That's good for him, but he's not my father. He no longer earns the right to be my dad. And so when I saw that, I was like, mourning the living. It's so funny because I said that to my husband the other day because I'm having a situation with my mom right now and I have to put that boundary back around her. But I said to my husband the other day, I said, I never thought I would bury my parents while they're still alive. And
Yep.
he looks at me, he goes, and I'm very blessed because I did meet my husband at 19 years old, almost 20. He had the most amazing parents. They were like parents to me. Like I used to tell my mother-in-law, we are, and people just think we looked alike. They never thought Chuck was the son. They thought I was the daughter. But I was very blessed, they're no longer with us to be able to say those were the example of parents I wanted, right? And
Mhm.
so talk to us about that mourning the living. It's really powerful for me.
Mhm. And the full title is Mourning the Living When the Loved One You've Lost is Still Here. It was the book came out of my relationship with my older sister. Our mother was a substance abuser. She was an unhealthy person mentally. And my sister experienced so much more trauma than I did and has struggled her entire life. And then in her 40s, just went off the deep end. And so, this person who was basically a parent to me, she was only 3 years older, but our mother was constantly abandoning us. And so, she stepped up as a little girl and would get me ready for school. She bought me my first car. And then, I think that she just got overwhelmed with the latest horrible thing that she'd experienced in life and started using drugs. And, who becomes a drug addict in their 40s? That should tell, like, she held on for as long as she possibly could. And I think she just was exhausted emotionally, psychologically. And so the book was born out of all the things I needed to do to get myself into a better place because I had so much anger towards her, which blew my mind because I always had so much love and respect for her. And I had to mourn who she used to mean to me. And I had to accept who she currently was at that time. had to accept that she'd done the same things that our mother had done. She'd done them to her own children. I had to accept that she was different. And I had to let go of who she used to be and who we used to be. It was hard. And as I was writing the book, I, really understood that I'd already done it to both of our parents. I'd already mourned them. And the book itself, it is about helping people grieve those relationships that you wish they were something healthy and positive and amazing in your life, and they just aren't. And so every single chapter is a different relationship dynamic: mother, father, children, yourself, even your own personal identity. And I sprinkle in interventions that I've done with my own personal clients, my therapy clients, helping them to do the exact same thing. And so then there are interventions, things that you can do to protect yourself in these relationships, because sometimes you can completely sever the ties. Sometimes you can say, no, I never have to see you again. We don't have to share the same space. But sometimes you're unable to do that. Sometimes you have to create boundaries, really strong boundaries. Sometimes you have to adjust your expectations of the person, of the relationship with the person, so you can coexist. So it's a mix of both of those things: teaching people how to sever the ties, or teaching people how to have the boundaries in order to coexist.
That's that's exactly like I'm going to go get the book when we get done. I'm going to get the book and really, and I'm going to share it with my brother too, because we both are walking this journey right now together. And, I felt like I literally called my son when I found it happened, still sitting in that driveway. And I was like, Matthew, listen. And this is when I knew I raised him. We raised our boys good, because his response, I'm like, listen, I am so sorry. I did not see this. I don't know how I didn't see it. And he's like, Mom, it's okay. It's not your fault. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm your mom. I'm a mama bear. Sorry. Nobody should have to go through that. Whether, no matter what your nationality is, you should have never been treated poorly. And the things that were said, to the degree, like even saying that we should have given him back and all these things, because, and I was like, your grandfather must be really something mentally wrong in his head to think it's okay. And I literally have just like sever those ties completely. And like you said, it was hard. I mean, it's nothing like losing a son, but it definitely is a grief process you go through. Because I was a daddy's girl. I walked everything when my dad did. I was like, oh yes, he's my dad, right? And so, yeah. And then I realized, like, this situation I'm having with my mom right now, that she's never ever stood up for herself. Like, they were 19, I think, when they took off and got married. So she's never stood up to herself, and so I can't expect her to do that now for me, because she doesn't even stand up for herself, right? So that part of the grief, it's like that reality. So I love that. I love that title, and I'm going to make sure to share it. And we'll have to talk later, because I think also I want to invite you into my small group women to come talk about that. I think it'd be awesome.
I'm in.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about, because, I'm a mental fitness coach, and I love about talking about the things that we saboteur, that are saboteurs and our judges that show up in our life. And I love that you're doing this when I saw for 14 and up. I think that's such an important age. And even now, I'm going to ask you a second question in a second, but I think that's such an important age that we're reaching out to these children that are this age to be like, let's help you. So talk to us about your goal of normalizing and validating that human experience and destigmatizing the mental health therapy.
You know, there are no perfect people. So therefore, there are no perfect parents. There are no perfect childhoods. And I think that whenever you're a child, just like you were talking about how you'd idealized your father, he was on a pedestal for you. We are taught that our parents, they know all, they are the best, they're the smartest, they're the strongest, they're the best. They love us so deeply. But there comes a time that you realize they're just human. They're just people. And sometimes those people are very unhealthy. And so I have found with the clients that I'm working with, what I'm teaching them tools on how to survive their childhoods. Because in so many instances, the reason that kids act out is because of their environments. 99% of the time, it's their environment, and they can't control their environments. They don't create their environments. Their parents do. So I'll have so many parents that will really try to just drive up, drop off their kid and keep going. And I go, nope, nope, nope. You got to do this too, especially with the little ones. With the older kids, not as much. With the older kids, it's us. But I will have, every once in a while, I will have conversations with the parents just to get clarification on certain things, to teach them what I'm teaching their kids so they understand their part in their child's healing. Sometimes I don't deal with the parents at all because I'm there for the child, because the child can feel so lonely and I am their safe place. And sometimes they don't want me to connect with their parent because they don't want to share me. And that's fine. That's okay. But, you know, kids need to know that they're not alone, and they can feel that way in so many different ways. And having come through the lockdowns, through the pandemic, it made it that much harder, you know, to battle the isolation and the depression that kids feel. Like, they know that they are just cogs in the wheel with all the standardized testing. Like, education has completely changed, and I feel gone down the toilet, and they don't feel seen or heard or respected. And it's unfortunate that we are all at that age and that stage at some point, but something happens to so many parents that they grow up and they automatically dismiss their kid the way they were probably dismissed and disrespected and did not like, and they continue the cycle. So it's important for kids to know that even though these two people that were supposed to be your champions, they're not doing all that they should be doing. It doesn't mean that all adults suck. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be respected by other adults. It doesn't mean that how you feel and what you're thinking about doesn't matter. And so I believe it's an important role to play. It's the reason why I became a therapist. I had that moment when I was working on these two shows and I said, I need to do something differently. I was driving, I think I was on the 405 in Los Angeles, which is, you know, its own little hell. And I saw a bumper sticker, and this bumper sticker changed my life. It said, "Be who you wish you had when you were a child." And I needed a therapist so badly. I didn't even know what therapy was. So I'm so grateful that kids even know that it's a thing. I had no clue. And wow, I needed it. So this is my way of paying it forward, to help kids feel better, to understand that, you know, their thoughts and feelings matter, and they can survive whatever it is they're going through. They can survive it.
I love that. Okay, say that statement, that bumper sticker one more time. I'm writing it down.
Mm-hmm. Be who you wish you had as a child.
Child. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, one of the things for us in our family, it was really, really important because I could see as Matt was growing up that, you know, the different things, you know, I always tell everybody the Blind Side movie was a perfect movie for our family. Matt even played football, everything. You know, he wasn't in foster system at all, but it's very similar to our walking. And I saw early on that even his own friends that were of color of him kind of like would give him a hard time about having a white family. So right away, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to address all these issues. This is not, I mean, we're parents, you know, there's certain things he's going to listen to us. So we really were insistent in making sure he had familiarity with going and speaking with somebody about feelings. And then he did that for a little bit and he was fine. And then later on, he had some struggles in life. And so he went back and we create the space of saying, we don't need to be with you. You don't need to tell us anything you share in there, but we just want you to have that safe space to be like, here's how you can have conversations. Mm-hmm. And we also made the commitment that we all agree that every other week we'd do it together. So we could understand that there's feelings he has. He's not going to share everything with us, but this is how we, you know, we respond to it. So it was really important for us to start that early on. And, you know, I was talking about this with somebody the other day because we see so much, and you're in it in the trenches every day. We see so much happening in our world right now with everything that's going on all over the world with mental fitness and mental health, that now, you know, I've got a young man that was a friend of my son who he's struggling with custody of his daughter. This young man would be the perfect person you would want to be the father of your grandchildren. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was just like such a great young man, but I could see he's being walked over. So I connected with him with resources to help him. But I had a conversation with him and I was like, you have to fight now. I literally said, and those that are listening, excuse me, I literally said, you got to get your cojones together right now and fight for her. She's 5 years old. She's got 2 more years that you can help shape what's happening and reshape what she's hearing to help her the rest of her life. And, you know, I said, I don't care what this mom is doing. I care what the mom's doing because I can see it affecting, but I don't care how much you have to fight this, mom. You're fighting for your daughter. And he's, he's doing well with it. And then when things, they went to court and things are set in stone, and now she's playing with that game, oh, well, she's sick. I'm like, pick her up even if she's sick. You're the dad. You can take care of her when she's sick. Do not let her play that game with you. And because that's what it is. And I was saying to somebody I had on my podcast last week, I'm like, I don't even know if they still do the morning shows in school anymore. I said, but I feel like if they do, wouldn't it be beautiful if they could have affirmations in school? Like, give them some affirmations in school. We talk about all this stuff that's happening in the school, but how about before you close off the morning show, everybody has an affirmation. They repeat it in the classroom. If we're saying the Pledge of Allegiance, there's no reason why we can't do this. And then I was like, even better was, how about if we took some breaths before we started the day? Just had the kids take some breaths. I'm sure there's a parent listening now going, well, they shouldn't be doing that in a school, but I believe.
No, they're not. And the parents can drive that. The parents
Right.
can make that happen. But
Right.
there's so little that is done. I worked in schools for years. I have a contract with a couple of different school districts in Washington State. And it's so sad to me how little is done to really educate the kids. The drive is towards standardized testing because it's all about data. It is not about fostering creativity and innovation. It is about data. Data is connected to money, and the kids know that the powers that be that don't care. The politicians do not care. The teachers care, but the teachers are getting pummeled by all the unrealistic expectations, governmental expectations, and that's why teachers are leaving in droves. Teachers are leaving because all those nice, amazing things that they want to do for kids, they're being told, no, you can't do it. No, we can't afford it. Just recently, like literally within the last few days here in Texas, they've now moved to the 4-day school week. It just passed. It's not going to start until the fall, but they're trying to do whatever they can to keep the teachers. And if we've got to shrink it up, then great. But I think that it's not at the local level where the changes need to be made. This needs to be a full-on sweep that's changed, where kids' mental health is prioritized. It's education, obviously, first, but how you feel matters. And if you don't feel good, you don't care what test score you get on your algebra exam. You don't give a shit. But it's so sad, working in the hospital emergency room, I was doing all these psych assessments on kids who have suicidal plans, or kids who have attempted suicide. And you would not believe how many parents, when I say your child needs to be hospitalized because they are going to attempt again, or they have a plan right now that they are going to initiate very soon. The child needs to be hospitalized. You have no idea how many parents were like, well, I don't want them to miss school. And I would be flat out honest with them. Your kid's going to miss school if they're dead. What do you prefer? They have a test tomorrow. Who gives a shit about the social studies test? Do you remember the social studies test you took when you were 16? No, you don't. So parents really need to understand the power that they have in this. And it's either they're really, really passive or helicopter controlling. The in between is what we need, where you have your emotion that's involved because you care about what's going on, but you're using your logic at the exact same time. What's the bigger picture here? And I think that needs to be, paid attention to. Because of the pandemic, before the pandemic happened, it was tough to find a therapist. Now, forget about it. Everybody's full. Everybody, like hardly anybody has any openings at all because everyone's distractions are gone. The world has opened up. Yes, the world has opened up now, but it was really tough for a very long time. And it's sad that people have to struggle at such a level for someone to wake up and go, oh, there's a problem. Oh, there's an issue? Really? Yeah, there's an issue.
And that's one of the reasons why, and I've shared this on a few episodes as well, that we always made sure to create this safe space for our kids. And I learned that from somebody I saw I would see him at the restaurant with his little one in like a little bassinet that's 6 months old. I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, you're here every week with the baby. He's like, I said, I think it's so cool. You're giving your wife a break. He goes, no, I'm creating space that we're going to talk. They can't talk to me right now, but we're going to do this every week. I was like, that's really cool. And I think my oldest was like 5 years old at the time. And so I adapt that where, it grew into, Mom, do you want to go have sushi? I knew he wanted to talk, right? And we would have conversations. And to the point that even my younger one, his is movies. Mom, you want to go to the movie? Okay, he wants to spend time together.
And with the littles, it's play with me.
Right. Yes.
It's
And we
that
don't,
simple.
and
It's
then we
that
brush it
simple.
off. Like we brush it off. I'm busy. I'll play with you later. Right. And I just love that you share that because, sometimes I was a helicopter mom. Sometimes I wasn't enough, but I feel like I was a lot in the middle because I wanted them to have that space because something I didn't have about come tell us anything. And it's funny because my oldest one could have like he would play football on a Friday night. If the game didn't go right, he was all in his head about, oh, I did this wrong, that wrong. And him and my husband would sit till sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night talking about the game and just helping him break it down that it's a team. It's not just you that lost the game, right? And so it's great conversations. And then, as he got older, again, we do let's have sushi together and have these conversations about what's on his mind and what's heavy in his heart. And you know, I watch. That's one of the reasons I have what's called a Shiro League. We meet every Sunday evening, 8 to 9 p.m. It's just women and we're, on Zoom. And it came from, I do a retreat every year in September. It's a pajama retreat. You come Thursday, we take off all our makeup. We're in our PJs the entire weekend. We're working on things
Oh,
around.
that sounds amazing.
We have 4 spots left. So we just hang out, we let the girls hang loose. We do things around self-care. We have great speakers. We have time on the beach. And through that, I think it was my 4th one, the girls were like, what are we going to do to like keep this, unite this PJ sister feeling together? I was like, so we started the Shiro League, but it never broke it down. We're just like, okay, we're females. We're out here nailing, our families, our self-care. And then COVID hit. And I was watching, like you were saying through COVID, like parents were trying to work. The husband was trying to work. The wife's trying to work, whatever their partners, whatever is happening in the house. And then, oh, I got to go be a teacher. Then the kids are stressed out because, oh, I can't go play with Johnny, and then we add on the layers of, are you vax, not vax? Like I saw all this stress happening and I was like, okay, we need to do more. And that's where I decided to start the Shiro League on Sunday evenings. And we really poured into what are you doing for yourself right now? Because I could just see that whole mental awareness just like falling apart. And I watched my husband at a coworker. It fell apart really, really bad. It was the first time in their company they had to deal with something they'd never dealt with before. And so it was like, we need to do more. And then that's where the Shiro League started from. And then we really started breaking it down. Once we started meeting, we started breaking down where, the S stood for strong or strength, like becoming strong and standing up for what it is you want, to put yourself first, to say no to others if it doesn't line up, be strong and setting boundaries. And that's where the S came in. And then we went to H, which stands for happy. And I really feel like as you become stronger in what you can do and you can put your boundaries on, and you've got the strength to say, I'm going to be happier now. I'm choosing to be happier. I'm choosing to get up in the morning and having affirmations, doing journaling, doing these cards, whatever it is that helps you create that happiness. And then as you step into those first 2, then you become empowered going, I got this. I can say no to others. I can go get help. I can have Johnny go put the clothes away. I can, all these things that you've really become empowered. Like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to pivot like what you did, Melody, right? I'm going to pivot to do something different. And then we get to the R. And I feel like, all right, it's called radiant, but I feel like I call it glowing up. And I got this from a guest. She's like, you can use it. Because I feel like as you start nailing those 3, you've got such this confidence. People are going, did you lose weight? What did you do differently? What did you cut your hair?
Carry yourself differently. Your voice even changes.
Right. Yeah. And then you get to the O and it's like, people talk about being your authentic self. When you come in this world, you have a DNA set in there and it's in there and what your tools and everything are already in there. And I feel like, we bury it down. We don't stay with our core, with everything up front, tell us all the things that in the back of our mind, our head's going, don't listen to that. Get those files out of the way. And so you really start stepping into that original belief of who you are. And you start believing that everything you want is yours. And so that's where the Shiro came from. And it's been fun to watch the growth that we've had. And in the Shiro League, we talk about, what brings you joy and what things you have to release so that you can get to your joy and all those great fun things that we do. And so I love that, that what you're doing, your work you're doing, I think is so important. Everybody that's out there trying to change and be there for our kids. And like you said, we create that space for our boys, because if you had come to us and said, "Hey, we think your son," I mean, our son Matthew, he attempted suicide, and we had to, get him help. It was powerful to watch his younger brother, who was in his, I think, second year of college, who was an RA, had gone through some like suicidal training at college, step in and go, "Mom and Dad, move," and helped his brother. It was so beautiful to watch. And then as Matt, he did better with that. And then he went down a path of alcoholism, and he went to rehab. And one of the things that was so powerful for him, he had gotten involved with this group of boys that we never called it to his face. But when he was in rehab, he said, "Mom, I know it was a cult." But what he said was so powerful. He said, even everything I've put you guys through, that no matter what I put you through, and I put you through some stuff, he's like, "I always knew you were there for me. You didn't hold judgment, and you created that space that I could talk with you." And that's what that's what I feel like we've gotten away from with some parenting. We're not listening. If you had told me he's got to go in, listen, I don't care if he's going to miss a test. Literally, I mean, I don't care. I remember when Matt was a senior in high school, and he was had to take a math test, right? His final, or he wasn't going to graduate. And I said to the teacher, "Okay, so let's talk what happens if he doesn't pass this math test. Miss Sharenza, we're not going to talk about that. I've never had a student not pass." I go, "Well, let's just talk. Let's have a plan." And so I'm like, "I just want a plan." So when you said that, I was like, it's nothing different than that. What's the plan to help him? My plan was, if he doesn't pass the test, what's the plan? And he didn't pass the test, and we had a plan. So, and he graduated. But the thing is that and for the people that are the parents that are listening and the listeners, if somebody comes to tell you, what's more important, being here or not being here, worrying about tests, I'm going to tell you, as a mom who lost her son last July, and I was so lucky that I talked to him 20 minutes before he passed, and we were able to say we loved each other. Don't let this go. Don't ever let anybody who's telling you that, don't just foo-foo it aside. Don't worry about the test. Don't worry about school. Because you know what? Once you get them through that, all that's still going to be there. You're still going to go back to school. You're still going to be able to do all that. So, listen to what the experts tell you, because it's so, so important. So I'm glad you shared that, Melody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important. There are 4 people I know died by suicide in the last year. And 1 month ago, my godson took his life a month ago. And it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. This goes beyond any type of race or socioeconomic status. It's everywhere. There was this philanthropist, billionaire art dealer who took his life a few days ago in New York. It's everywhere. And I think that you don't have to have the level of comfort or expertise that someone like me has. Just find someone who does. And even, I mean, you're going to be uncomfortable. This is what I do, and I still get uncomfortable. You don't have to have all the answers, but definitely ignoring it and denying it is not okay. And I think that there's ego involved in it too. Like, you would not believe how many times I had parents and guardians mad at me, angry at me, because of something their kid told me that the kid had never told the parent. And I said, I am telling you right now, you are the reason why you don't know what you should know about your kid. Your behavior towards me, and I am a peer. Imagine how your kid took it. They knew you couldn't handle it. So that's where your ego has to take a back seat. You don't have to know everything. You will never know everything about your child. I don't care if you gave birth. It does not matter. There's something going on with your kid. You've got to put your ego aside, and you've got to open your ears and shut your mouth and problem solve. Figure out what happens next. Bring in the cavalry. But this is really, really serious. Our mental health is so important. And I have a friend of mine who is a former TV producer as well, who had some moments, some really, really tough moments. And she had contemplated taking her life. And she had a conversation with someone we knew mutually, and that friend shut her down. This is someone that would go on social media and say, if you need something, ask someone. She would post all the things, be there for somebody. And when this person came to her and said, I'm struggling, she completely ignored her. It
That's,
blows my
I was going
mind.
to
It
say,
blows my
and you're out there
mind.
putting that out there. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay to be scared. That's the thing I think is really, really important. It's okay to be scared. You don't have to have all the answers, but you can call 911. You can call the neighbor. You can call a family member. You can send an instant message, a text, or something. You don't have to be the front lines, but if you've got that information, be responsible. Do
Right.
something.
Right. Yeah. Because oftentimes we don't. And that's the thing is we have to do something. I
Mhm.
remember Matt had a couple of friends that showed up at our door after he had a car accident. And so it's hard. Like I couldn't get into his phone because it got damaged in the car accident. So it's hard to reach all of his friends. And I remember he had two friends show up within like 3 weeks of each other after Matt passed. And I was like, to tell them that information and to watch these young men be like, oh, I was going to come the other day. I was going to, and
Mhm.
so I was like, okay, I'd bring them in there and we'd sit down with them and just kind of, support them. And that we created in July of this year, it's going to start hashtag make the call for Matt. So make the call to somebody who's on your mind, somebody who you think might be struggling, just call them and just check on them because
Mhm.
and then when somebody comes, like you said, don't foo-foo it away. Just, okay, how can I support? Listen. And what do we need to do? I'm here. How can I support?
Mhm.
Oftentimes people ask me, how are you and Chuck? I've been with my husband for almost 40 years. How do you do that? And I always say, we come from a place of love. If something's bothering us, we always say, especially if it's like, he's done something that's upset me. We always go into it saying, are you open to receiving? Because not everybody's ready to receive how you
True.
feel,
That's
right?
amazing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so we do that. And we also have made a commitment that if we're not open and receiving, that within 24 hours we will be. Because you don't want to just foo-foo somebody away for a couple of days. Because
Mhm.
I grew up in a household, my parents, they would argue. Like for 2 weeks, they wouldn't talk, and then all of a sudden they're fine. I'm like, what happened? you know,
I'm working with a couple right now that does that. That it just it, and I was talking to the husband and I said, "What irritates you?" And he's like, We fight all the time." I said, "Do you fight about the exact same things?" I already knew that they fought about the exact same things over and over and over. He's like, "Yeah, it drives me crazy." And I said, "Well, whenever you guys fight and then you act like everything's fine, do you ever circle back around and say, 'Hey, this is what was on my mind. This is what I was feeling at that time. What were you feeling? Like, can we resolve this?'" No, so you never go back. So can't you see that's the reason why you guys have the same fights over and over again?
right.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Well, what made me do that? So when I first met my husband, like I said, all I knew was, you know, just don't talk if he's upset me. So he would, and he's a communicator. He's like, I can't know what I did if you don't tell me. And so
Mhm.
he would start having the conversations for me. And he would upset, he'd be talking
Go,
to me
Chuck, go.
yes. And then I would be like going, I wasn't going to say that. That's not what I was going to say. And he's like, well, you're not telling me. So I'm just going to assume. I'm like, don't you assume nothing about me. And then we started having conversations. But now, and he'll tell
That
you
is
now, but she doesn't
brilliant.
ever quiet down. So, I just love that. So tell us, so one of the questions I walked through Shiro with you, um, a big thing that we talk about here in the show is how do you balance, especially Melody, there's a lot you help people with, and there's a lot of heaviness, right? So, oftentimes you have to leave the office or leave, and like release. What do you do, Melody, to release and also take care of your self-care?
Very simple things. I go on walks. Walks are really big for me. Moving my body around, being in nature is really important for me. It helps me clear my head. It settles my mind and my heart. I talk to my friends. I mean, I don't divulge what's happening in my therapy sessions, but I do talk about just how I feel based on my therapy sessions and just whatever is happening in my life. I talk about it. I am very much an introverted person. And so I work a lot out in my own head. I'm an internal processor. But I find that whenever I actually have conversations with my friends, it takes it to the next level, getting it out of my head, out, getting it out. It brings about a whole other, set of skills like brainstorming and it just gives life to whatever is on your mind. Just saying things out loud. Very, very helpful. I play pickleball, which is such a silly little game that the name is what got me. It wasn't the game itself; it was the name that brought me in. I watch stupid TV shows. things that I don't have to think much about. Like I've seen every episode of Seinfeld and The Office and Schitt's Creek like multiple times. I've seen all the seasons just so I can just zone out. I can be engaged in something, but not really engaged in something. I journal. I don't journal every single day. I don't feel the need to do it every single day, but I will, whenever I journal, I don't do necessarily bullet points if I did this and I did that, I went here and I went there. What I journal about is if I do an activity, if I have a conversation, what what thoughts came about, what emotions came out of it, what connections did I make from incidents in the past, like what were the connections that I made that brought about new thoughts or new understandings, new insights. That's my thing. It's like all about insight. So I journal to write down the insights that I gain from conversations I have or experiences that I have. Yeah, I think that cooking is a big thing for me. Traveling is a big thing for me. I mix it up. I mix
Well,
it up.
I was surprised that there's no reality TV in there.
Oh, I have had my fill of reality TV. I can't watch it. I can't watch it anymore because I know that there's so much bullshit involved.
Yeah,
There are very few shows that are true reality TV shows anymore. Those I love the documentary aspect of just really watching something unfold naturally,
right.
but it just doesn't happen that way anymore. And there's so much fighting, I don't get anything out of it. The day job, like my day job is dramatic enough. I'm not going to take that in on my own time.
I love that. So I am I love comedy. I get what you're doing. I think that's amazing because it is a great release. But for me, it's been like before my mother-in-law passed, she always would watch The Bachelor or Bachelorette, whatever it was. And I'm like, Mom, how do you watch this show? I'm like, really? I'm like, but it was, it was stupid TV she liked to watch, and I spent time with her, so it was fun. And we'd pick on people, and we'd pick, this person. Oh, that one's. But one of my favorites, I've always I never watched it from the beginning though, was Survivor. And
Yeah.
I love that one. And the really cool thing is, this is another example I gave my kids, was that we were doing, it was before COVID, I was doing one of my retreats, and I just saw where Suri Field was on. I think it was her third time being on the show. The second time was a favorite. And I remember Jeff asked her why, and she said, I just knew I had to get off the couch. If I didn't do anything, I wasn't going to get off my couch. So I was like, I wonder, and it was around the time was what our theme was about, that getting up and doing something. So I said, I'm like, I'm going to reach out to her. So I reached out to her, gotten her phone number, called her, and it just wasn't a good fit. We, kind of just said, okay, it didn't work, but I wasn't giving up. And my kids were like, why were you doing that? Like, why would you just call somebody like that? I'm like, well, why not? All they can do is tell me no. Like, she's going to tell me no. Well, the second year we did it was all about fear. And I was like, Sri, you really have to come this year. And she came to the retreat. We had her come to the retreat. We flew her in, and it was so amazing. She was so powerful. And the story she shared about the whole process she went through to get on the show and everything was really like eye opening. But what I thought was funny, the funniest thing I remember her telling us was that her first time being on the show, I guess the producers had called, they had to send their clothes ahead. And so she'd sent her clothes ahead, and the producers had called her and said, are you sure these are clothes you want to have? She's like, well, yeah. Yeah, I'm not. You sure you want to send different clothes? No, I don't want to send. She said she packed like she was going on a cruise. And I'm like, I thought you watched the show all the time. She goes, I know, that's why they were questioning. But I just love that. For me, I love watching because I love to watch how people start interacting on that show. And I love the game playing that they do. But like you said, and then all the backstabbing stuff, that part I'm not, but I'm like, I know it's part of the game. But that's about the only one that I really watch anymore. I love doing HGT. I'm a big HGTV.
Yes, I love that. I love seeing things being created and made
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah. I love the Rock the Block. And actually, the 100 build day, and the winners of 2 years ago Rock the Block, they live here locally, so we love them. So, but okay, so now we're going to break down. You've done self-care. So Melanie, one of the things we're working on in the Shira League is what brings you joy. And so they had to make a list of 10 things that bring them joy, but not just because it makes them happy or just because I get out of bed, but like 10 things and why, like really break down. So I'm not going to ask you for 10. I'm going to ask you for the top 3 things that bring you joy and why do they bring you joy?
Mm. Um, is this something that I'm participating in or just observe in the world?
That you participate in. It brings you joy to your heart.
You know, my work, when I'm working with a client and I hear them, there are these few little words that I hear that just makes my heart sing. When a client, I say something to them or I present something to them and they say, huh, I never thought about it that way before. To be able to spark new thought in someone's mind so they can see their lives in a better way, see things, a situation differently. I love that. I love like hosting for people. I love cooking and having people come in and serving and making people smile and feel good and feel appreciated. I absolutely love that. Um, Playing with dogs bring me joy. I'm one of those people that I see a dog, walking down the street. I wave at the dog. I say hello. I ask them how their day's going. Dogs bring me so much joy
I love
because
that.
like little kids too, that just that pure energy, that beautiful, honest, sincere energy. I just love and appreciate so much on a natural base level that,
Yes.
we as humans, we don't deserve dogs.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's so true. And you know what? For those that are listening, dogs really know what's happening
Oh,
because
absolutely.
my gosh, when my son passed last year, we had to get his clothes together that he was going to be buried in, and so I had clothes together, and they were on the couch, and he's used to Matt coming or going, but he must have sensed that something had happened, and literally he was sitting on the couch on the jersey. Matt was we're a big Buffalo Bills fan, so he had his favorite jersey sitting there, and I looked over and I was like, oh my gosh, she's crying. Like literally tears are coming down his eyes. I was like, oh my goodness, and I was like, so I sat with him and everything. And to this day, he sleeps with me every night. I hate dog. I'm not a dog sleeper. When Matt was like, he slept with Matthew, and now he's my clock to go to bed at 10 p.m. I used to go to bed at 11. It's 10 p.m. He looks at me like, are we going to bed yet?
Yep.
So
My dog will do that too. Corral you into the bed like, hello.
let's go.
Hello, let's do this.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So now the other thing I had to work on is because we got our joy and these are the things that make us happy, but we can't always get to the joy. We can't always go for a walk and see the dog in the park and wave at them and things like that. So my question to them was, tell me 10 things on your list that you have to stop doing. So we do all these lists about grocery shopping, whatever I have to do for work. But do you ever create a list of things that you need to release and stop doing so that you can do more of the things that bring you joy? So, what 3 things do you need to put on your not to do list so that you can make sure you get to your joy?
That's brilliant. I've never thought about it that way before. That is brilliant. Um, but it's something that I have been doing over the last year or so that I didn't think about formally was not, I have to stop overexerting myself and not in like, oh, I'm going to all the people's parties, everyone inviting, not that, but I am very achievement oriented. I like getting things done and letting that go of these, imagined deadlines to accomplish certain things. I've let that go. Letting go of what even on the outside could look amazing and fun and still saying no. I've canceled 3 different birthday parties in the last 10 years because I just, no, that's not going to work. The idea sounded fantastic at the time, but where I am right now, no, I'm not doing that. Not doing that. And so, not overcommitting myself to different projects and things because I love getting things done and just saying, no, I'm not going to do that. No, that's no longer a priority for me. I'm not going to take that on any longer. I've slowed my life way down because I was doing multiple things at the same time and not accomplishing it and not finishing anything. because I was spending a little time here and a little time there on a bunch of different things instead of focusing and hunkering down and completing things. And so that's what I've done. I've slowed down tremendously.
That's a great reminder to everybody to slow down because I, when COVID came, I was like, oh, one of the things everybody's just kind of take time. You're at home. And I kept saying to the clients that I coach, I'm like, we're going to come out of this. Do not, it's going to be easy and fast to slip into old habits. But what is it about what we've done the past year and a half that you want to carry forward? Because that's, for me, it's like the balance and, the shoulds. And I don't want to do the shoulds, forget the shoulds, right? And so that's so, so important. And I'm glad you reminded that, like, slow down, don't rush everything, and just enjoy the moment that's happening. It's so, so, so important because if you don't, like you said, you can't take time to go walk with the dog, say hi to the dogs in the park and those fun things. So thank you for playing along with me, Melanie.
Absolutely.
So I can't believe I look at the clock. It's like we're coming down to our time together. So Melanie, tell everybody how they can find you.
Sure. Again, my name is Melody Murray. My website is melodylmft.com. The LMFT stands for Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist. Melody LMFT, you can find me with that handle on Facebook and on Instagram as well.
And we'll make sure we share all the links with everybody as well. And I just want to tell you, so Melanie, do you are you have to be licensed in certain states? Is that to work with people, or how does that work?
Yeah, you can only work with the people that you're in the states where you're licensed. So I'm licensed in Washington State, so that's where my client base is. But I'm in the process of getting licensed in Texas and California at the time.
Awesome.
Right now. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. More people you can help as well. So so exciting. Okay, everybody. So I already let Melanie know that we're going to do the cards. So Melody, you're going to tell me when to stop shuffling and we're going to read your cards. So here we go. Tell me when to stop, Melody.
Stop.
Ooh, she got me almost to the back end. Your card says, how have I surprised myself?
Ooh. Ooh. These. How have I surprised myself? A recent surprise. So I'm a very adventurous traveler. And I recently surprised myself by moving back to my hometown and getting an apartment when my initial plan was to move to Mexico. Yeah, I was supposed to be living in Mexico as of January. And last year I traveled quite a bit. I was in Costa Rica, Thailand, Bali, like spending months at a time in different places, Mexico. And my plan was to move to Mexico and then just take off around the world. And when I came back to Houston after being in Asia, I thought it doesn't feel right. I've already been gone, from my hometown for 20 years, and to put all my stuff in storage and take off again just felt wrong. I've been disconnected from my family for such a long time. So I surprised myself by hunkering down. I bought property. I bought property out in the country, and then I just got an apartment in the city, and I have set up this new home. So that is hugely surprising for me.
That's amazing. I love that.
Decided to pivot again.
That's so, so amazing. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And again, we're going to put all the links that we have for Melody, and we're going to put them so you can find her. And if you want to know anything about the Shiro League that we spoke about, you can email me at hello@wsliving.com. That's hello@wsliving, like you're living out loud.com. And just put Shiro, and we'll make sure you get everything you need. And I also just want to remind you that as we come into this world, as I've always said, you come in, you're a little rough on this oyster on the outside. You've got a lot to do to smooth out that oyster and to crack open to find your inner pearl of greatness. And I hope you guys go out today and you find your inner pearl. Have an amazing day.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to live.